Welcome to the video lecture of Compiler Design. This video focuses on the topic Runtime Environment of Module 5. Under Runtime Environment, we will be discussing source language issues, storage organization, and storage allocation strategies. The topics in detail. Under source language issues, activation trace, control stack, scope of declaration, and bindings will be discussed. Under storage organization, we will be discussing the structure of an activation record. Under storage allocation strategy, different allocation strategies like static allocation, stack allocation, and heap allocation will be discussed. First topic is source language issue. In source language issue, we will be relating the static program, that is the source program, to actions that must take place at runtime for executing the program. During the source program, the variables will be having the names, but meanwhile it will be allocated memory, and we can call it as the data objects. When the storage is allocated for the variables, we can say that there should be relationship between the variable names and data objects. When the variables get allocated storage, it will become data objects. And this allocation and deallocation of the data objects will be dealt by the runtime support package in many of the programming languages. And depending on the language, there will be different type of runtime environment. Some programming language support fully static environment. Some support stack-based or dynamic. The type of environment determines the need to use stack, heap, or both. That means if it is supporting a dynamic environment, we can use stack as well as heap. Then consider an example of a quicksort program. In this, several procedures are defined. This slide explains the syntax of procedure. How we can define a procedure. There should be a procedure name and there should be a body of the procedure. Then if we are invoking a particular procedure, there will be, if it is having some arguments, we can call that arguments as actual arguments or actual parameters. When that parameters occurs with the procedure definition, we can call that parameters as formal parameters. So in this case, there is a main program. After the main, inside the main, the first statement is the array declaration. After that, read array, it is the procedure. Read array, it will be invoked. After that, quicksort will be a procedure that will get invoked. So this is the read array procedure and this is the quicksort procedure. Inside the quicksort itself, it will be invoking partition. This is the partition definition, a definition of that partition function. So whenever a procedure is invoked, an activation corresponding to that procedure will also get invoked. And the lifetime of the activation will depend upon the lifetime of the procedure body. Coming to the flow of control. While a procedure gets executed, it should follow the control sequence. So in the case of procedure, always the control starts from beginning of the procedure body and it will end when it will return from the procedure. So after execution of the procedure, it should go back to the statement immediately after which that particular call statement has been invoked. That means, for example, if there is a main function in a C program, there is a function invocation statement like add for a function named add, and after that invocation statement of add, if that main program is having a printf statement, that means that after the execution of the add procedure or function, it should return back to that printf statement. That is the statement immediately after that function called add. Then another indication is that there should be some control flow change will happen if there is a go-to statement. And we have already discussed that there will be activation corresponding to a procedure and the lifetime of procedure will depend upon the procedure definition. If a procedure P is having invoked another procedure Q, that means both procedure activation will exist at a time for procedure P and procedure Q. But when the procedure, if the P is invoking Q, initially the procedure activation for P will be invoked. After that, the procedure activation for Q will be invoked. When the execution of the Q gets over, the activation for Q will be no longer there. After the execution of the P will get completed, the activation corresponding to P will also not be available. So that means that activations cannot overlap, but it remains nested. In the case of recursive procedures, recursion means if a procedure is a routine is calling the routine multiple times. So a recursive procedure is a procedure that calls itself. So when in the case of procedure activation for recursion, we can say that multiple activation for the same procedure will exist at the same time. In the case of activation tree, that means in the case of procedure, during the invocation of a procedure activation will be created, and this procedure activation can be represented using a activation tree. That means while the procedure starts execution, the control will flow sequentially, and this control flow can, if each procedure has got invocation of some other procedures, that can be shown using activation tree. How we can represent the activation tree is described here. The root node will be the activation of the main program. The node for A is the parent node for B if and only if control flows from A to B. The node for A is to the left of the node for B if and only if lifetime of A occurs before lifetime of B. So the 3 points we should take care of while we build an activation tree for a procedure. So here again we are considering the quicksort program. Here we are assuming that S represents the activation of the main program, that is the main program sorting program. R represents the activation of read array. P represents the activation of partition. Q of x comma y represents activation of quicksort. So if we draw the activation tree for the corresponding sorting program, so initially the main will be invoked, that is the S root of the activation tree. Then it will be invoking the read array, because inside the main the first procedure invocation is the read array. So that R corresponds to the activation of the read array. Then it will go to the read array, it will execute and come back, and it will invoke the quicksort of 1, 9. That is shown here. Q of 1, 9. That is the activation corresponding to that. Then when it goes into the quicksort procedure, inside that first part in procedure is a partition. So it will be invoking the activation for partition. After that it will be again invoking quicksort. So it will be the activation for that quicksort. Then next statement is also quicksort, that will be invoked. But inside this quicksort we can see that the arguments are m comma I minus 1, where I is the return value of partition function. Here we are passing 1 and 9 as argument for quicksort, and it will be invoking the partition function with 1 and 9 as argument, and it will be returning some value like 1. That means so q of 1 comma 3. So in the case of this q of 1 comma 9, it will be returned p of 1 comma 9. It will be returning some value like 4. That means I is equal to partition of m comma n. When it go for 1 comma 9, it will be returning some value called 4, and it will be using that I minus 1, that is 4 minus 1, 3, that is this 3 here. Then m, the value is already 1, so q of 1 comma 3 will be invoked. Again that quicksort will be again invoked. That means it will again call the partition, so p of 1 comma 3. Again it will call the quicksort. That partition will be returning some I value, that is 1. So it will be again performing it is invoking the quicksort procedure. So its corresponding activation will be generated. In the case of q of 1 comma 0, there is no further branches because it cannot create more branches because the condition is here. If it needs to again invoke partition, it should be n should be greater than m. In this case, n is less than m. That is why it has no further branches. So depending upon the flow of this program, activation tree can be represented. Then about the control stack and the activation tree, we know that the activation records will be there, and this activation record can be stored in stack. That means procedure activations can be stored in stack. And there are activation trees. Then how we can evaluate the activation tree? To get the flow of control, we have to perform a depth first traversal of the activation tree. Well, the activation for a procedure are created, it will be pushed onto the stack. When the activation is not, then procedure is not there, that means and the activation is not live, the activation is to be popped off from the stack. That means control stack will be containing, the stack will be containing the contents. Initially, in the case of previous example, initially we will be invoking the procedure for the main program. So that is the S. So initially we'll be pushing that activation S onto the stack. After that we'll be pushing R onto the stack. After that Q of 1 comma 9. But this R, it will be after the execution of the read array procedure has entered up, no longer R activation corresponding to that read array, that is R will not be available. That means it will not be in the stack. That is shown in the next slide. Here it is shown that S then R is activation tree, then Q of 1 comma 9. In the corresponding stack representation is that initially the stack is having S, then it was having R, but since the R execution of the procedure is already completed, that R will be popped off and Q of 1 comma 9 will be pushed. That is why there is no partition over that R, because in this case already the completed executions are shown as dotted lines. This R, this P, activation corresponding to P, they are shown as dotted lines. Here also, since that execution is completed, it's shown as dotted lines, and that will be popped off from the stack. Stack works in the principle of last in first out. Then the next topic is scope of declaration. There are different types of variable in the procedure. The variable can be either local or non-local. It will depend upon the scope of the variable. We can name the different variables using a single name. If add function is having an integer variable I, maybe the sub function is another function, it can also have the variable I, because it has got different scope. That first I is actually the scope is within the add function. The second I mentioned has the scope only within the sub function. The next topic is binding of name. In the case of binding of name, we have to learn two terms, environment and state. The function that maps a name to a storage location, that is called environment. Environment of a variable name means if you have a variable, you have to associate it to the storage location, so that we can call it as environment. State, that is function that maps a storage location to a value. Here it is defined as function G. Then, so function G can be applied over the function F, so as that it can produce result as value. That is, in the next slide it is shown as an example. If there is a variable X, it is stored in the location 100. Initially it is holding a value 0. Environment is X is bound to storage location 100. State is the value is held as 0. That is the state. But when we change the assignment statement X equal to 10, instead of 0, now it is holding 10. That means no change will happen to environment, but state will change because the value held is different. Coming to the static and dynamic ideas or notions corresponding to the procedure, declaration and all, binding and all, we can say that for a procedure, in the case of definition of the procedure, when a procedure gets invoked, an activation also gets invoked. So the activation is the dynamic part. In the case of a variable name, in the case dynamic part is the bindings. In the case of a declaration, the lifetime of binding is also the scope of declaration of a variable, the lifetime of binding is the dynamic part. So that is all about the source language issues. Next topic is storage organization. Under that storage organization, we'll be seeing the details of activation record. So in the case of storage organization, we know that the compiler will be producing executable as a target program, and this target program is to be stored into the memory, main memory for execution. At that time, the OS has to allow perform this memory management functions. Then it will perform the execution of the program, and during that the runtime storage must hold these things, that is the generated target code, that is the executable, the storage associated with the runtime, and also the data object, that is the storage for the variables, then a counterpart of the control stack to keep track of the procedure activation. So a target code should be there, then the data objects, then the control stack. So this is the runtime storage structure. It is deposited here. That's the code area, that is the executable will be stored here, that is the target program. Then the data objects, whether it is a global variable or static variable, it will be provided here. Then the procedure activation regarding information, that is whether the stack or heap we are using. Heap means it is dynamic allocation. Stack also allows us to perform dynamic allocation in case of recursion. So here it is explained like this. Stack, it also keep track of the program counter. It contains information about the register value of program counter, and data object whose lifetimes are contained in that of an activation. That is the information that is regarding the stack. Heap holds all other information, for example, activation that cannot be represented as a tree. By convention, stack grows down and the top of the stack is drawn towards the bottom of the slide. Value of top is usually kept in a register. Here from this picture we can see that in between the stack and heap there is free space. This is actually the lower part of the memory address, and this is the higher part of the memory address, the bottom part, highest part. The stack grows downwards from the low to the high. So the heap grows upwards. That means when the stack grows upward, the free space will become less. That is shown in this slide. The stack grown, so free space became less. So coming to the most important topic, activation record. The activation record, the fields corresponding to the activation records are important. Another name for activation record, that is the frame. Frame is the name for activation record. So corresponding to each procedure there will be activation. Information needed by a simple execution of a procedure is managed using an activation record. Not all compilers will use all of the fields. There are different fields. Not all the compilers will be using all these fields. So whenever the activation is there, that activation record is to be pushed onto the runtime stack, and whenever that procedure gets over execution, that will be popped up from the stack. So the information that is contained in activation record are very important: return value, actual parameters, optional control link, optional access link, saved machine status, local data, and temporaries. In the case of procedures, when a procedure is called, we can say that considering an example, if there is a main function and there is a function called add. If main is calling the add function, main function is the caller and add is the callee, and this caller function will be and both of them will be having the activation records, and the caller function will have access to the callee's part of this activation record. This much part of the activation record of the callers will be under the control of the caller procedure. Then we can see individually which are the different which details of each field. First we can see the temporaries. Temporaries means we have already dealt with the temporary variables during the intermediate code generation, that is during the evaluation of expression. So temporary values means those arising in the evaluation of expression. Then local data, that means the data that is local to that procedure. The data that is local to the execution of that procedure. If a procedure is there, its activation record is there, that local variables or the information about that local variables will be stored in this part. Saved machine status, that means the status of the machine before the procedure is getting started. If main is calling another add function, that main activation record of the main and add will be there. The add function will be also holding the status of the machine before the add function start its execution. So that machine status, that means the program counter has to reach like that information. That will be the machine status. The status of the machine into before procedure is called. Values of program counter and machine registers that have to be restored when control returns from the procedure. That is after executing the add function, it should return back to which all status. That is the previous status of that main program. That will be stored in saved machine status. And another one is access link. It will be having the reference to the non-local data held to other activation record. So it will be not the other than the local data. There will be it will be dealing with some other data in some other activation record. That particular link to that particular activation records will be stored in access link. Then control link means it is the point to the activation record of the caller. I have already said that from the return value till the saved machine status, if both procedures have activation records with the caller and callee, that callee's activation record, this part will be maintained by the caller function, caller procedure. Then actual parameters, that is the parameters during the calling of that procedure. So that will be controlled by the caller and that will be put into the actual parameters field. Used by the calling procedure to supply parameters to the called procedure. So that means the parameters will be supplied to the called procedure using this field. Returned value, after execution of the procedure, it should return the value. That will be the return address. In main, suppose after the addition function is invoked, add function is invoked, the result of the addition has to be stored in a variable I. That return address of the I should be stored in this return value part. Used by the called procedure to return a value to the calling procedure. So local data. Local data means the field for local data is set when declarations in a procedure are examined during compile time. But variable length data, that means we don't know whether its storage will limit or it needs furthermore storage. That means the variable length data that will not be stored corresponding to the local data field. Also the local data field. So this is a local data field. The local data field will also manage the count of the memory locations that have been allocated so far. Also to determine a relative address offset of the storage for local with respect to some position beginning of the frame. That means it will carry some address so as to access some other variables. Then storage allocation strategy. Different allocation strategy possible for the variables are static allocation and stack allocation and heap allocation. We know that basically if suppose a programming language like Java, if we are using a new operator, it is actually memory will be allocated during the runtime. That is the dynamic allocation. That type of memory will be allocated in heap. After allocating the memory, if we are using, and after usage we have to deallocate the memory. That means we have to use the delete operator. So that means the memory allocated in the heap will be deallocated. So that is the dynamic or heap based allocation. Then stack based allocation means if already the variable, how much variable we require, that is already known to the programmer, we can easily go for the stack based allocation. In the case of recursion, recursion uses data structure called stack. So we can say that stack also supports some sort of dynamic allocation in the case of recursion. In the case of static allocation means if there are static variables, it will we have already learned about the static variables in C programming languages and all. About it has got a value, consistency of values it will be maintaining. So that static variables will be allocated storage. That is actually in the data segment area, it will be given the storage. It will not be allocated in stack or heap. So coming to the detail of the static allocation. In static environment, there are a number of restrictions, but even though we have some static variables, will be allocating that particular variables in data segment, there are some restrictions for the allocation. That is, first one is size of data object are known at compile time. First thing, we have to know the size of that data object, and it will not support any recursive procedure. There will be no dynamic memory allocation. These are the restrictions for the static allocation strategy. Only one copy of each procedure activation record exists at time t. We can allocate storage at compile time. Bindings do not change at runtime. Every time a procedure is called, the same bindings occur. These are the negatives of static allocation. So in the next allocation strategy, that is the stack allocation strategy, will be overcoming all these negatives. So this is an example of a static allocation. In this, there is this program is having main program. Inside that main, k is a variable. Inside, after that variable declaration, it is invoking a function f. Then function f contains the local variables k and m. Then in above that function and main, it has got an I, int I declaration, I equal to 10. That is a global variable. It is globally available to both main as well as function f. So this is a runtime stack. The runtime stack shows that this is a code area. This is the code area for the main and function f. Then the global or static area, so global variable I, that will be stored here. Then the stack procedure activation for the procedures main as well as the function f is stored here. Then stack based allocation means in stack based allocation the previous restrictions are lifted. What we have mentioned as restriction in static allocation, that all has been lifted in case of stack based allocation. Procedures are allowed to be called recursively. So it supports recursion because we know that the data structure behind recursion stack need to hold multiple activation record for the same procedure. Then that means in the case of stack, same procedure will be having multiple activation record that will be permitted. That was one of the negative or demerit of that static allocation strategy. Then each record will maintain a pointer to the record that activated it. Like that, it will be managing that stack. Dynamic memory allocation is also allowed in case of stack. Pointers to data allocations are allowed. When we use pointers in programs, it will actually we can use pointers also, because it also pointers means it is dynamic memory allocation. Stack support that. So this is an example of that stack based allocation based on the sorting program. Activation record on stack, initially at S, that will be the main program. So in main program there will be the RIA. Then so it was in the main sorting program. First statement of that main program is RIA. So that will be the storage is shown here, ARI. Then the R will be there, but R after that execution is over, it will be replaced with the Q of 1, 9. So that will be the activation record on the stack and its position in activation tree. So this is already discussed in the previous slide. So we can code the same here also, because the procedure activations are always stored on the stack. Then calling sequences, how that while the procedure is called, what all things happen for the activation record, that is discussed here. So after during the call, there will be a sequence of things happens, and after that after the execution of the procedure, it will be returning. So during the return time also something will be performed over the activation record that we are going to examine. Call sequence allocate activation record and enters information into field. During the call, it will allocate that activation record. It is entering the information into the field. In the case of return sequence, it will restore the state of the machine so that the calling procedure can continue execution. That is the major thing happening. In detail, we can see a diagram here. The activation record of caller and callee, that is, if we consider the main function and add function, if main is invoking add, main is the caller function, add is the callee function. This is the first it has shown the activation record of main, then activation record of add function. That is caller and callee is put together. It is it is put next to each other. So always the callee's activation record will be next to caller. That means I already told that till the machine status saved machine status field, the caller has got the access. Callee's saved machine status field of the activation record, the caller has got the access. The caller is filling all these part: return value, actual parameter, optional control link, optional access link, saved machine status. So here, by placing return value and the actual parameters next to the activation record of the caller, why we are positioning that field return value and actual parameters just near to caller's activation record. Here the answer is that caller can access these values using offset from its own activation record. The caller has got a pointer, it can use that offsets for that, set offset for the pointer so that it can access the return values, that is value returned by this procedure. No need to know the middle part of the caller's activation record. But it shouldn't, since it is return value and actual parameters is only used by the caller, it doesn't require to know about this middle part. Then, how do we calculate the offset? Maintain a register that point to the end of the machine status field in an activation record. Field in an activation, that is the register that points to the end of the machine status field in an activation record. Top underscore SP is known to the caller. This is known to the caller, so it can be responsible for setting it before control flows to the call procedure. So this caller can set this top underscore SP. Callee can access its temporaries and local data using offset from top underscore SP. So this callee that will be accessing its temporaries and local data using offset from this top underscore SP. This is set by the caller. So finalizing the sequence, call sequence, the caller evaluate the actual parameters is always invoked by the procedure is invoked by the caller. So inside that there will be actual parameters during the invocation statement. So the caller evaluate the actuals. The caller, what it do next is stores a return address and old value of top underscore SP into callee's activation record. Then increment top underscore SP so that it is moved past the caller's local data and temporaries and the caller's parameter and status field. So it will move past that local data, caller's local data and temporaries and move till here. The callee says register values and other status information. The callee also has some part, it will say the register value and some other status information. The callee initializes its local data and begins the execution. Then what about the return sequence? The callee places a return value next to the activation record of the caller. Using the information in the status field, the callee will restore the top underscore SP and other registers. It will branch the return address in the caller's code. So that it can again go back to the statement immediately after the function has invoked. Although top underscore SP has been decremented, the caller can copy that return value into its own activation record and use it to evaluate an expression. Then another point is dangling reference. That means if already it has a storage, but after some time the storage has been reallocated, then if it is the pointer is pointing to that storage which is already deallocated, then it becomes the dangling pointer. Dangling reference. So this when there is a reference to a storage that has been deallocated, that has become a dangling reference. Example is shown here. Here it is main program is there. Dangle is a function. It is a pointer. Then it has got an integer variable I. Then it is returning the address of that I. But in the case of main, I will return back to the main. It is assigned to P, but P is actually a pointer pointing to I. But I, after when it returned back to the main program, dangle returned back to the main program, I is not active. I is active, or the scope of I is within this dangle function only. So that means it is not, pointer P is not pointing to not an active location of I. So that means that at this time that I location for I will not exist. So it becomes a dangling reference. That is what it is said. When procedure completes execution and control is transferred to main, the space for I does not exist anymore. Pointer P is a dangling reference. Then dynamic allocation, that is the heap allocation. Returning the address of local variable is defined to be logical error. And C. In the case of we cannot return the address of the local variable, but it is permitted if we are using a dynamic allocation. In a dynamic environment, there is no such restriction. All variables and activation record must be maintained for as long as there are references to them. So it is possible to return pointers to local function. That it can return the pointers to the local function. That is made with the help possible with the help of this dynamic environment. So whenever we are allocating memory from the heap, that is the dynamic allocation, after the usage we should deallocate. So here it is said that use a heap to maintain these records. Also we can call that heap as free store, because a pool of memory will be available from that pool of memory, that heap. From that heap we can use or allocate memory for the variables during runtime. After the usage we have to free the memory, but that heap management process is a challenging process. So that is all about the runtime environment. Thank you.